Chapter 1. The knock at the door. Loren had just settled into his favorite chair, a worn leather recliner that had molded itself to his frame over the years, when the knock came. It wasn't the polite tap of a neighbor asking for sugar or the firm rap of a delivery driver. No, this was a knock with purpose. A knock that said, "Open up, your life is about to change." He frowned, muted the soft jazz playing from his Bluetooth speaker, and crossed the apartment. The city skyline glittered behind him through floor-to-ceiling windows. 1,000 lights twinkling like Christmas had spilled across the horizon. He'd been planning a quiet night. Leftover tie, a good book, maybe a late-night scroll through investment blogs. Nothing dramatic. The door swung open, and Drama waltzed in wearing a cranberry red coat and a smile that could power a small village. Jeffrey. His mother's voice was warm, melodic, and utterly unapologetic. Before he could react, she swept him into a hug that smelled faintly of Chanel and peppermint. "Mom," he managed, arms stiff at his sides. "What? Oh, look at you." She pulled back, cupping his face like he was still 12 and had just won the spelling bee. "So grown up, so handsome. I swear, every time I see you, you look more like your father." Jeff blinked, trying to process the next visual. A bellhop maneuvering a cart stacked with luggage, 3 suitcases, a garment bag, and what appeared to be a hatbox. The young man looked apologetic, as if he knew this was a hostage situation in progress. "Mom," Jeff said slowly, "why is there a caravan behind you?" "Oh, don't fuss." She waved a manicured hand and turned to the bellhop with a dazzling smile. "Just through there, dear. Guest room." The bellhop hesitated, glanced at Jeff, then rolled forward like a soldier following questionable orders. Jeff stepped aside because what else could he do? His mother was a force of nature. Hurricanes didn't ask permission. By the time the luggage disappeared down the hall, Jeff had found his voice. "Mom, what's going on?" She ignored him entirely, nodding at the bellhop as he returned. "Such a well-mannered young man," she cooed. "Jeffrey, tip him properly, won't you?" Jeff sighed, pulled his wallet from his back pocket, and handed over a generous tip. "Merry Christmas," he said, because none of this was the bellhop's fault. When the door closed behind him, Jeff turned to find his mother in the kitchen. Coat off, sleeves rolled up, boiling water like she owned the place. Which technically she didn't. "Tea," she announced, pulling out a tin of loose leaves from her bag. Then came the real shocker. She started unloading ingredients: flour, sugar, cinnamon, from one of the suitcases. Jeff froze. His mother didn't cook, ever, unless she was apologizing for something, or scheming. And to the best of his memory, she had nothing to apologize for. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Okay, spill." She smiled sweetly, stirring the water. "Spill what?" "The reason you're here, with enough luggage to start a boutique. And why you're cooking, which you only do when you're about to drop a bomb." Her eyes twinkled. "Jeffrey, it's Christmas." "Aha." He narrowed his gaze. And I missed my son." She reached for a whisk, her tone breezy. "Is that so hard to believe?" "Yes," Jeff said flatly. "Because you booked a month-long stay, didn't you?" She didn't answer, which was answer enough. Jeff exhaled slowly, watching her measure cinnamon with surgical precision. His radar was screaming. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about holiday cheer. And he had a sinking feeling he was about to find out exactly how far his mother would go to meddle in his life. Chapter 2. Tea, Tension, and Truths. Jeff watched his mother whisk cinnamon into a bowl like she was auditioning for a holiday cooking show. The scent of cloves and nutmeg drifted through the apartment, mingling with the faint aroma of his abandoned Thai takeout. It was festive, cozy, and deeply suspicious. He leaned against the counter, arms folded, his voice calm but edged with curiosity. "So, Mom, you want to tell me why you're suddenly Martha Stewart?" She didn't look up. "I thought I'd make some cookies. Christmas cookies. You like gingerbread, don't you?" "I like gingerbread," Jeff said slowly. "But you hate baking. Last time you tried, the smoke alarm filed for a restraining order." Her laugh was light, airy, and completely evasive. "Oh, Jeffrey, you exaggerate." "No," he said, deadpan. "I don't." She measured sugar with the precision of a surgeon, then glanced at him with a smile that was all innocence and sparkle. "Can't a mother spend time with her son without being interrogated?" Jeff raised an eyebrow. "Sure. If she doesn't show up with a month's worth of luggage and start cooking like she's hiding state secrets." Her whisk paused midair. "You're very dramatic. I learned from the best." She chuckled, resumed whisking, and for a moment, the only sound was the rhythmic scrape of metal against glass. Jeff studied her posture, her expression, the way her eyes flicked toward him and then away. He knew that look. It was the same one she wore when she convinced him to join the debate team in high school, or when she accidentally introduced him to the daughter of her bridge partner during college. This wasn't just a visit. This was a mission. Jeff sighed, pushing off the counter. "Okay, Mom. Cards on the table. What's the plan?" Her smile widened, but her tone was breezy. "Plan? There's no plan." "Aha." He opened a cabinet, pulled out 2 mugs, and set them down with deliberate care. "You only lie when you're plotting," she gasped theatrically. "Jeffrey Loren, how dare you accuse your mother of deceit?" He filled the kettle, set it on the stove, and gave her a look that said he wasn't buying it. "You didn't answer the question." She shrugged, sprinkling flour like fairy dust. "Fine. I wanted to spend Christmas with you. Is that so terrible?" "No," Jeff admitted. "But you could have called. I wanted it to be a surprise." "It's a surprise," he said dryly. "Like a tornado is a surprise." Her lips twitched. "You're impossible. And you're hiding something." She didn't deny it, which told him everything. The kettle whistled softly, steam curling upward. Jeff poured water into the mugs, dropped in tea bags, and slid one toward her. "Whatever it is, just don't make it complicated." Her eyes softened as she wrapped her hands around the mug. "Jeffrey, you work so hard. You deserve happiness." "I'm happy," he said simply. She tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle missing a piece. "Are you?" "Yes." He met her gaze, steady and calm. "I like my life." She smiled faintly, but there was something behind it, a flicker of determination that made his stomach tighten. He knew that look too. It meant she wasn't done. Jeff sipped his tea, letting the warmth settle in his chest. He didn't press further. Not yet, because if there was one thing he'd learned about his mother, it was this: she played the long game. And he had a sinking feeling that game had already begun. Later that night, after his mother retired to the guest room with a stack of glossy magazines and a satisfied smile, Jeff stood by the window, city lights glittering like 1,000 secrets. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even annoyed. But he was alert, because whatever she was planning, it wasn't small. And if history was any guide, it involved him and possibly his love life. Jeff exhaled slowly, watching snowflakes drift past the glass. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew one thing for certain. Christmas was about to get interesting. Chapter 3. The elevator encounter. The next morning, Jeff left his apartment early, hoping to dodge any further interrogation about his happiness. His mother had been up before dawn, humming carols and rearranging his minimalist holiday decor into something resembling Santa's workshop. He didn't have the heart to stop her yet, but he needed air. And coffee. Lots of coffee. The hallway was quiet, carpet plush under his polished shoes. He pressed the elevator button and waited, scrolling through emails on his phone. Year-end HR chaos was already brewing. Vacation requests, payroll adjustments, and a reminder that the company holiday party was tonight. He sighed. He liked his job, but December was a marathon. The elevator dinged, doors sliding open with a soft whoosh. Jeff stepped inside and froze. Sonia Blake stood in the corner, sleek in a charcoal coat, her dark hair swept into a low bun. She was scrolling her phone, thumb moving with practiced ease. When she looked up, her eyes, warm brown, sharp and intelligent, met his. "Morning," she said, voice smooth, professional. The kind of tone that could calm a room full of angry tenants. "Morning," Jeff replied, stepping in and pressing the lobby button. He'd seen her before, of course, at the front desk during building meetings, but always in passing. Always professional. He respected that, which was why he'd never tried to push beyond polite greetings. The elevator hummed as it descended. Jeff slid his phone into his pocket, suddenly aware of the silence. He wasn't awkward by nature, but something about Sonia's presence made him alert, like he was in a meeting that mattered. She glanced at him, a flicker of recognition in her eyes. "You're on 23, right?" "Yeah," Jeff said. "You too." She nodded. "Perks of the job." He smiled faintly. "Building manager life." Her lips curved. "Exactly." The elevator slowed, lights blinking as they passed floor after floor. Jeff noticed the faint scent of her perfume. Something crisp, like winter air and citrus. Suited her. Clean, understated, confident. "You heading to work?" she asked, slipping her phone into her bag. "Yeah," Jeff said. "HR circus. Year-end madness." She laughed softly. "I can imagine." "And you?" he asked. "Holiday chaos for tenants?" "Always," she said with a wry smile. "Someone complained yesterday that the lobby tree was too sparkly." Jeff chuckled. "Is that a thing?" "Apparently." Her eyes danced with amusement. "I told them Christmas isn't a matte finish holiday." He laughed, the sound echoing lightly in the elevator. For a moment, the tension eased. She was funny. Dry humor, quick wit, the kind he appreciated. The elevator dinged again, doors sliding open to the lobby. Sonia stepped out first, her stride confident, heels clicking against polished marble. Jeff followed, adjusting his coat. At the front desk, the young receptionist greeted Sonia warmly. Jeff nodded to her, then glanced back at Sonia as she paused to check something on a clipboard. For half a second, her gaze met his again. Steady, curious, and then she turned away, heading toward the office tucked behind the reception area. Jeff pushed through the glass doors into the crisp winter air, his breath fogging in the chill. Snowflakes drifted lazily from a pale sky, settling on his coat like whispers. He walked toward the subway, hands in his pockets, mind unexpectedly occupied. "Sonia Blake," He'd admired her professionalism before, but this glimpse of humor, warmth, was new and intriguing. He wasn't looking for anything. He liked his life the way it was. But as he descended into the subway, one thought lingered like a stubborn melody. If his mother's plan involved Sonia, maybe, just maybe, it wasn't the worst idea in the world. Chapter 4. Mom meets Sonia. Jeff returned home that evening braced for impact. His mother had texted him 3 times during the day, photos of his apartment now draped in garlands, a cryptic message about festive magic, and one alarming image of Baxter, the building manager's cat, lounging on his kitchen counter like he owned the place. Jeff stared at that photo for a full minute before typing back, "Why is there a cat in my apartment?" Her reply came instantly, "Oh, don't be silly. He's adorable and opinionated." Jeff didn't even know how to respond to that, so he just hoped Baxter had left before he got home. The elevator ride up was quiet, save for the faint hum of holiday music piped through the speakers. When the doors slid open to the 23rd floor, Jeff stepped out and froze. His mother was standing in the hallway, chatting animatedly with Sonia Blake. Jeff's pulse ticked up a notch. Sonia looked as polished as ever, dressed in a deep green sweater that made her eyes seem even warmer. She held a small box of ornaments, her expression polite but faintly amused as his mother gestured like a general outlining battle plans. "Oh, Jeffrey!" His mother's voice rang out like a trumpet. "Come here, darling." Jeff approached slowly, his professional smile firmly in place. "Hi, Sonia." "Hi, Jeff." Her tone was cordial, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her gaze, like she was trying to figure out how she'd been drafted into whatever this was. "I was just telling Sonia," his mother said brightly, "how dreadful your apartment looked before I arrived. Practically barren. No Christmas spirit at all." Jeff gave Sonia a look that said, "I'm sorry for everything." She smiled faintly, as if to say, "I've seen worse." "I offered her some ornaments," Sonia said, lifting the box slightly. "We have extras from the lobby tree." "That's kind of you," Jeff said, his voice even. "Thanks." "It's nothing," Sonia replied. "We always keep spares." His mother beamed like she just brokered world peace. "Isn't she wonderful? So thoughtful." Jeff ignored the loaded tone and focused on Sonia. "Busy day." She nodded. "Always. Someone complained the wreaths were too cheerful." Jeff chuckled. "That's a new one. People have strong feelings about decor," she said dryly. His mother laughed like Sonia had just delivered the punchline of the century. "Oh, you're delightful." Jeff pinched the bridge of his nose. "Mom." "Oh, don't mind me," she said, waving a hand. "I was just inviting Sonia to join us for cocoa later." Jeff blinked. "You were what?" Sonia's brows lifted slightly, amusement flickering in her eyes. "That's very kind, but no pressure," his mother cut in smoothly. "Just a little holiday cheer. Jeffrey makes excellent cocoa." Jeff stared at her. "I do." "Of course you do," she said sweetly. "You're my son." Sonia laughed softly, and Jeff felt something shift, like the air had warmed a degree. Her laugh was low, genuine, and it did things to his pulse he didn't care to analyze right now. "I'll think about it," Sonia said, her tone gracious. "Thank you." "Wonderful." His mother clapped her hands like the matter was settled. "We'll be waiting." Jeff watched Sonia retreat down the hall, Baxter's name tag jingling faintly from the carrier she carried in her other hand. The cat shot him a look through the mesh, a look that said, "Good luck, buddy." When Sonia disappeared around the corner, Jeff turned to his mother, voice calm but edged. "What are you doing?" "Spreading holiday cheer," she said innocently. "Mom." She smiled, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Jeffrey, she's lovely." He exhaled slowly. "You promised not to meddle." "I never promised that," she said sweetly. "Besides, meddling is such an ugly word. I prefer facilitating happiness." Jeff stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head and walked to his door. "You're unbelievable." "And you're welcome," she called after him. Jeff didn't answer, because deep down, though he'd never admit it, he wasn't entirely unhappy about the idea of Sonia Blake having cocoa in his apartment. Chapter 5. Holiday chaos at work. Jeff's office was a hive of controlled chaos. The hum of printers, the clatter of keyboards, and the occasional burst of laughter from the marketing team blended into a soundtrack of year-end frenzy. HR was the nerve center of it all, and Jeff, regional staff coordinator and head of HR, was right in the thick of it. He slid into his chair, coffee in hand, and opened his inbox. 57 unread emails. He exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. "Okay, Loren. One fire at a time." The first email was a payroll adjustment request marked urgent. The second was a reminder about the holiday party tonight. Mandatory attendance for leadership. Jeff grimaced. He liked his coworkers, but the idea of forced merriment after a 12-hour day wasn't exactly thrilling. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Don't forget cocoa tonight." Sonia said she'd think about it. "Wear something festive." Jeff stared at the screen, then typed back, "Mom, stop." Her reply came instantly. "Never." Jeff set the phone face down and focused on his work. But Sonia's name lingered in his mind like a refrain. He pictured her in that green sweater, her dry humor, the way her laugh had softened the edges of his day. He wasn't looking for anything, he reminded himself of that, but he couldn't deny the spark. By noon, Jeff had wrangled 3 vacation disputes, approved a dozen expense reports, and mediated a minor meltdown in IT over holiday coverage. He was halfway through drafting an email about compliance training when his colleague, Marcus, leaned against his doorway. "Big guy," Marcus said, grinning. "You ready for tonight?" Jeff looked up. "Define ready." "The party," Marcus said, stepping in. "Free food, open bar, questionable karaoke. What's not to love?" Jeff smirked. "The karaoke." Marcus laughed. "Come on, man. It's Christmas. Live a little." "I live plenty," Jeff said dryly. "Just quietly." Marcus shook his head, amused. "You're a mystery, Loren. One of these days we're gonna crack you." "Good luck with that," Jeff said, returning to his screen. Marcus lingered, then grinned. "Bring a date." Jeff blinked. "Excuse me?" "Holiday party," Marcus said, shrugging. "Everyone's bringing someone. You should too." Jeff's lips twitched. "And who exactly do you suggest?" Marcus grinned wider. "That building manager you've been eyeing." Jeff's brows shot up. "What?" "Oh, don't play innocent," Marcus said, laughing. "You mentioned her once. Sonia, right? Lives in your building." Jeff stared at him, expression neutral. "You have an excellent memory. And excellent instincts," Marcus said, backing toward the door. "Think about it." Jeff shook his head as Marcus disappeared, but the idea lodged itself in his brain like a stubborn snowflake. Sonia at the holiday party. Sonia laughing at the absurdity of corporate karaoke. Sonia sipping champagne under twinkling lights. He pushed the thought aside and buried himself in spreadsheets. But by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, it was still there. Quiet, insistent, like the hum of Christmas music in the background. Jeff left the office as dusk settled over the city, lights glittering against a velvet sky. Snowflakes drifted lazily, catching in his hair as he walked toward the subway. His phone buzzed again. Another text from his mother. "Don't be late. Coco waits. And maybe company." Jeff stared at the message, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. He didn't know if Sonia would show. He didn't know what his mother was plotting next. But as he descended into the subway, one thought warmed him against the winter chill. Tonight might be interesting. Chapter 6. The building party. The elevator doors opened to a burst of laughter and the faint strains of Jingle Bell Rock. Jeff stepped into the building lounge, instantly enveloped by warmth and the scent of cinnamon and pine. The annual holiday mixer was in full swing, twinkling lights draped across the ceiling, a towering tree glittering in the corner, and a buffet table groaning under the weight of hors d'oeuvres and sparkling cider. Jeff adjusted his tie, scanning the room. Residents mingled in clusters, glasses in hand, voices rising and falling like a tide. He spotted the maintenance supervisor, Harold, hovering near the chocolate fountain with the reverence of a man in church. Jeff smiled faintly. He'd brought Harold a box of exotic truffles last week, and the man had nearly wept with joy. "Jeff!" Sonia's voice cut through the hum like a clear bell. He turned, and there she was, moving toward him with effortless grace. Her dress was a deep burgundy, simple but striking, paired with black heels that clicked softly against the polished floor. Her hair was loose tonight, dark waves framing her face, and Jeff felt something in his chest shift. "Hi," he said, his voice steady despite the sudden spike in his pulse. "Hi," she replied, smiling. "Glad you made it. Wouldn't miss it," he said, then added dryly. "Mandatory fun." She laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Tell me about it. I've been fielding complaints about the eggnog since 6. Jeff grinned. "Too creamy. Too festive," she said, rolling her eyes. "Apparently, someone wanted almond milk." He chuckled, and for a moment, the chaos around them faded. Sonia had that effect, grounding, effortless. He liked that. "Drink?" she asked, gesturing toward the bar. "Sure," Jeff said, following her through the crowd. His mother was nowhere in sight yet, but he had no illusions she wasn't lurking somewhere, plotting her next move. At the bar, Sonia ordered sparkling cider. Jeff did the same, ignoring the lure of the open wine bottles. He wanted a clear head tonight. "So," she said, turning to face him, glass in hand. "How's HR life during the holidays?" "Like juggling flaming swords," Jeff said. "Everyone wants time off. No one wants coverage, and payroll thinks I'm Santa." She laughed softly. "Sounds festive." "Festive chaos," he said, clinking his glass lightly against hers. "Cheers." They sipped, and Jeff let the moment settle, a quiet pocket amid the noise. He liked talking to her. She was sharp, funny, and didn't fill silence with fluff. It was refreshing. "Jeffrey." His mother's voice rang out like a trumpet fanfare. Jeff closed his eyes briefly. Of course. He turned to see her sweeping toward them, resplendent in a crimson dress that could have doubled as a warning sign. Her smile was dazzling, her eyes alight with triumph. "Sonia, darling," she exclaimed, as if they were lifelong friends. "You look stunning." "Thank you," Sonia said graciously, though Jeff caught the flicker of amusement in her eyes. Jeffrey, his mother continued, why don't you introduce me properly? Jeff resisted the urge to sigh. Mom, this is Sonia Blake, building manager. Sonia, my mother, Elaine Loren. A pleasure, Sonia said, extending a hand. Delightful, Elaine said, clasping it warmly. I was just telling Jeffrey how much I adore this building. So well run. So elegant. Thank you, Sonia said, her tone smooth. We try. Elaine beamed. And you succeed. Now I hope you'll join us for cocoa later. I insist. Jeff shot Sonia a look that said I'm sorry. I tried to stop her. Sonia's lips curved, amusement dancing in her eyes. We'll see, she said lightly. Elaine clapped her hands like the matter was settled. Wonderful. I'll let you two mingle. And with that, she swept away, leaving a trail of perfume and mischief in her wake. Jeff groaned softly. I'm so sorry. Sonia laughed, low and warm. Don't be. She's spirited. That's one word for it, Jeff said dryly. They drifted toward the buffet, conversation flowing easily. Holiday plans, favorite movies, the absurdity of corporate karaoke. At one point, Baxter made his grand entrance, trotting in on a leash like royalty. He promptly stole a shrimp from the platter and glared at anyone who objected. Sonia sighed. He's impossible. Jeff grinned. Opinionated, you said. Understatement, she muttered, scooping him up. Jeff chuckled, and for a moment, the world felt simple. Lights, laughter, and the quiet thrill of possibility. Later, as Jeff walked back to his apartment, Sonia's laughter lingered in his mind like a melody. His mother's meddling was obvious, but for the first time, he didn't mind. Not one bit, because if this was her plan, maybe he was okay with it. Chapter 7. The gift exchange. The next morning, Jeff woke early. The city still cloaked in a soft gray dawn. Snow dusted the streets below like powdered sugar, and the hum of traffic was muted, as if the world had paused for breath. He stood by the window, coffee in hand, thinking about last night, the laughter, the lights, Sonia's smile lingering like a warm echo. His mother had been positively glowing when they returned from the mixer, humming carols as she arranged ornaments Sonia had insisted he take. Jeff hadn't argued. He was too busy replaying snippets of conversation in his head, wondering why it felt so easy with her. By mid-morning, Jeff was in motion. It was his tradition, one he never skipped. Every year, he gave small, meaningful gifts to the building staff. Nothing extravagant, just thoughtful tokens that said, I see you. I appreciate you. It mattered to him. Always had. He laid the gifts out on his kitchen counter. A box of rare truffles for Harold, the maintenance supervisor who treated chocolate like currency. A set of cozy scarves for the front desk team, each in their favorite color. He'd paid attention. Or a sleek planner for the night security guard who was studying for his MBA. Jeff packed them carefully into gift bags, adding handwritten notes to each. It wasn't about money, it was about effort. About making people feel valued. His mother appeared in the doorway, sipping tea, eyes twinkling. You're such a good man, Jeffrey. He glanced up. Just doing what I do. She smiled knowingly. Sonia will notice. Jeff froze for half a second, then resumed tying a ribbon. Mom. What? She said, all innocence. Women notice kindness. He didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. The lobby was a swirl of holiday cheer when Jeff stepped off the elevator, gifts in hand. The tree glittered, garlands draped across the marble, and the scent of pine mingled with the faint sweetness of cookies from the refreshment table. Jeff, the receptionist beamed as he approached. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, he said warmly, handing her a bag. For you. Her eyes widened. Oh wow. Thank you. He moved down the line, distributing gifts, exchanging smiles and laughter. Harold nearly hugged him when he saw the truffles, muttering something about a man who understands priorities. Jeff was mid-conversation with the security guard when he felt it. A shift in the air, a quiet awareness. He turned, and there was Sonia, standing near the tree, clipboard in hand, her burgundy coat draped over one arm. She was talking to a delivery guy, her tone brisk but polite, and Jeff caught the faint curve of her smile when she glanced his way. He finished his conversation and crossed the lobby, gift bag in hand. Morning. Morning, she said, eyes meeting his. Busy. Always, he said lightly. This is for you. Her brows lifted as he held out the bag. Jeff, you didn't have to. I wanted to, he said simply. She took the bag, fingers brushing his for the briefest moment. A spark, quick and electric. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. That's really thoughtful. He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Just a little holiday cheer. She peeked inside, and her laugh was low, warm. A candle. Cinnamon and vanilla. Perfect. Figured you could use something relaxing, he said. Building manager life looks intense. Her eyes met his again, steady and curious. You pay attention. Jeff held her gaze, pulse ticking up. I try. For a moment, the noise of the lobby faded. The chatter, the music, the rustle of coats. It was just them. standing in the glow of the tree, something unspoken humming between them. Then Baxter yowled from his carrier, shattering the moment like a cymbal crash. Sonia sighed, amused. He hates waiting. Jeff chuckled. Opinionated, right? Always, she said, smiling as she turned away. Thanks again, Jeff. Really. He watched her go, the gift bag swinging lightly from her hand, and felt something settle in his chest. A quiet certainty that this wasn't just holiday cheer. It was the beginning of something. Chapter 8. Snowstorm in Cocoa. The snow started as a whisper, soft flakes drifting past Jeff's office window like confetti. By the time he wrapped up his last email and stepped outside, it was a full-blown curtain of white, swirling under the glow of streetlights. The city had slowed to a crawl, tires hissing on slush, horns muted by the muffled hush of winter. Jeff tugged his coat tighter and headed for the subway, but the station entrance was roped off, a neon sign flashing service suspended due to weather. He exhaled, watching his breath fog in the icy air. Great. The storm had come faster than expected. He pulled out his phone, checked the rideshare app, surge pricing through the roof, wait times ridiculous. Walking home was the only option. 23 blocks in a snowstorm. Perfect. By the time he reached the building, his hair was damp, his shoes dusted white, and his fingers numb despite his gloves. He pushed through the glass doors into the lobby, grateful for the blast of heat, and froze. Sonia was there, standing near the front desk, coat dusted with snow, cheeks flushed pink from the cold. Baxter sat in his carrier on the counter, glaring at the world like it had personally offended him. Jeff, she said, surprise flickering across her face. You walked. Subway's down, he said, brushing snow from his shoulders. You? Same, she said, grimacing. My car's buried, and now the roads are a mess. Jeff glanced toward the windows. Snow was coming down in thick sheets, wind rattling the glass. Looks like we're stuck. Sonia sighed, shifting Baxter's carrier. I was going to grab cocoa from the cafe, but they closed early. Jeff hesitated for half a second, then heard his mother's voice in his head. Or something festive. Cocoa waits. He almost smiled. You could come upstairs, he said casually. I've got cocoa. Real cocoa. None of that powdered stuff. Her brows lifted, amusement flickering in her eyes. Real cocoa? Imported chocolate, he said, deadpan. I take it seriously. She laughed softly, and something in Jeff's chest warmed despite the chill clinging to his coat. Tempting, she said. But Baxter's welcome, Jeff said. Opinionated cats get VIP treatment. Her lips curved. You're sure? Positive, he said, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of anticipation that had nothing to do with holiday lights. Jeff's apartment glowed with soft lamplight, garlands twined along the shelves courtesy of his mother's decorating spree. Sonia stepped inside, shaking snow from her hair, her coat draped over one arm. Baxter strutted out of his carrier like he owned the place, tail high, eyes sweeping the room with imperial disdain. Nice, Sonia said, glancing around. Cozy. Thanks, Jeff said, heading to the kitchen. Make yourself comfortable. She slipped off her boots, settling on the sofa as Baxter leapt onto the armrest with a grunt. Jeff filled a saucepan, the scent of chocolate blooming as he whisked cocoa powder and cream into a velvety swirl. He added cinnamon, just a hint, and poured the steaming mixture into 2 mugs. When he handed her one, their fingers brushed, and the spark was there again. Quick, electric, impossible to ignore. Wow, she said after the first sip, eyes widening. This is amazing. Told you, Jeff said, smiling faintly. I take cocoa seriously. She laughed, curling her hands around the mug. Clearly. For a while they talked about the storm, the chaos of holiday logistics, the absurdity of someone complaining about 2 cheerful wreaths. Sonia's laugh was warm, her wit sharp, and Jeff found himself leaning in, drawn by the ease of it all. No pretense. No games. Just conversation that flowed like the cocoa. Rich, comforting, with a hint of spice. Baxter, of course, inserted himself at every opportunity, yowling for attention, swatting at Jeff's shoelaces, and finally curling up on Sonia's lap with a sigh that sounded suspiciously smug. When the wind howled outside and the snow piled higher against the windows, Jeff realized something. He didn't mind being stuck. Not at all. Later, as Sonia laughed at one of his dry jokes and Baxter purred like a tiny engine, Jeff felt a quiet certainty settle in his chest, a sense that this night, this moment, was the start of something he hadn't seen coming. And for the first time in years, he was okay with that. Chapter 9. The confession setup. The snowstorm had passed overnight, leaving the city glittering under a pale winter sun. Icicles clung to balconies like crystal ornaments, and the streets below gleamed with fresh salt and slush. Jeff stood by his window, sipping coffee, replaying fragments of last night. The warmth of Sonia's laugh, the soft glow of lamplight on her hair, the way Baxter had curled up like a smug little chaperone. It had been unexpected and good, too good. He was still turning that over when his mother breezed into the living room, humming "Deck the Halls" like a woman with a secret, which, of course, she was. "Morning, Jeffrey," she sang, adjusting a sprig of holly on the mantel. Did you sleep well? Jeff eyed her warily. Fine. Lovely, she said, her tone dripping with innocence. And Sonia? Did she enjoy the cocoa? Jeff froze mid-sip. You knew she came up? Of course, she said, smiling like a cat with cream. I ran into her in the lobby after the storm started. Suggested she take you up on your offer. Jeff set his mug down slowly. Mom. What? She said, all wide-eyed sweetness. You were being neighborly. He gave her a look that could have melted snow. You're meddling. I'm facilitating happiness, she corrected, fluffing a pillow. And speaking of happiness, she held up a sprig of mistletoe like a magician revealing her trump card. Jeff stared. No. Yes, she said, eyes twinkling. It's tradition. It's manipulation. It's festive, she countered, already moving toward the doorway. I'll just hang this right here. Mom, Jeff said, his voice calm but edged. Don't. She ignored him entirely, humming as she secured the mistletoe in the archway between the kitchen and living room. Then she stepped back, admiring her handiwork like Michelangelo unveiling the Sistine Chapel. Perfect, she declared. Now, when Sonia comes by, Jeff groaned. She's not coming by. Oh, she will, his mother said confidently. I invited her. Jeff closed his eyes briefly. Of course you did. By late afternoon, Jeff had resigned himself to the inevitable. His mother was a force of nature, and resisting her was like trying to stop a blizzard with a hairdryer. He told himself he'd keep it light, keep it casual. No pressure, no expectations. But when the knock came and Sonia stepped inside, cheeks pink from the cold, hair tucked into a sleek gray scarf, Jeff felt his resolve wobble. Hi, she said, smiling. Your mom said Coco? Jeff shot his mother a look. She was perched on the sofa like royalty. Baxter sprawled beside her, but kept his tone even. Yeah, Coco. He led Sonia to the kitchen, the mistletoe dangling overhead like a silent dare. She noticed it instantly. Of course she did, and her brows lifted, amusement flickering in her eyes. Festive, she said lightly. Jeff's lips twitched. My mother's idea. Obviously, she said, laughing softly. He made cocoa rich, velvety, with a hint of cinnamon, and handed her a mug. Their fingers brushed again, and the spark was there, quick and undeniable. Sonia settled on the sofa, Baxter immediately claiming her lap like a furry diplomat. Jeff sat across from her, the fire crackling softly in the background. They talked about the storm, the chaos of holiday logistics, the absurdity of someone requesting non-cheerful wreaths. Sonia's laugh was warm, her wit sharp, and Jeff found himself leaning in, drawn by the ease of it all. Then his mother excused herself with suspicious cheer, leaving them alone under the glow of twinkling lights. For a moment, silence stretched, comfortable, charged. Sonia glanced toward the archway, mistletoe swaying gently, and her lips curved in a smile that was equal parts amused and knowing. Your mom's persistent, she said. Jeff chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. That's one word for it. She's sweet, Sonia said, her tone softer now, and clearly wants you happy. Jeff met her gaze, something steady and unspoken passing between them. She does, he said quietly. But for the record, I'm not looking for someone because she wants it. Sonia's eyes held his, warm and curious. Good, she said, because I'm not here for that either. Jeff felt something settle in his chest, a quiet certainty, like the click of a lock turning. He didn't move closer, not yet, but the air between them hummed with possibility, and for the first time, he didn't mind the mistletoe hanging overhead, because maybe, just maybe, his mother's meddling wasn't the worst thing in the world. Chapter 10. Cracks in the plan. The next morning, Jeff woke to the smell of cinnamon and the faint sound of humming. His mother was in the kitchen again, orchestrating breakfast like a general marshalling troops. He padded out in sweats, hair damp from the shower, and found her arranging a plate of pastries with suspicious precision. Morning, he said, voice low. Good morning, darling, she chirped, far too cheerful for someone who'd been up since dawn. I thought we'd start the day with something sweet. Jeff eyed the pastries. You don't bake. I supervise, she said breezily, pouring coffee into a mug. And Sonia gave me the name of a lovely bakery. Jeff froze mid-step. You talked to Sonia? Of course, she said, smiling like a cat with cream. She's delightful. Jeff rubbed his temple. Mom. What? She said, all innocence. We had a lovely chat. She adores Baxter, by the way. Jeff exhaled slowly, trying to keep his tone even. You're pushing. I'm nudging, she corrected, sliding the mug toward him. There's a difference. He didn't argue, because what was the point? His mother was relentless, and he knew it. But as he sipped his coffee, he felt a flicker of unease. Not because Sonia had come over last night, but because he didn't want her to think this was all some elaborate scheme. That evening, Jeff returned from work to find Sonia waiting near the elevator, coat draped over her arm, Baxter's carrier in hand. Her expression was calm, but there was a glint in her eyes, a sharpness he hadn't seen before. Hey, he said, smiling. Everything okay? Can we talk? She asked, her tone polite but firm. Jeff's pulse ticked up. Sure. They rode up in silence, the hum of the elevator filling the space between them. When they reached his floor, Sonia stepped out first, her heels clicking softly against the carpet. Jeff followed, unlocking his door and gesturing her inside. She set Baxter's carrier down, then turned to face him, arms crossed lightly. Jeff, your mom. He winced. Yeah. About that. She's sweet, Sonia said quickly. Really? But. She hesitated, searching for words. I don't like feeling managed. Jeff nodded, guilt pricking at him. I get that. And for the record, I didn't ask her to do any of this. Sonia studied him, her gaze steady. But you knew. Jeff exhaled. I suspected. And I didn't stop her. Her brows lifted. Why? He met her eyes, something raw and honest rising to the surface. Because I like spending time with you. And if her meddling gave me an excuse, I took it. Silence stretched. A beat, too, before Sonia's lips curved in a faint smile. That's honest. It's the truth, Jeff said quietly. But if it feels like pressure, I'll tell her to back off. Sonia shook her head, amusement flickering in her eyes. No need. I can handle your mom. Jeff smiled faintly. Most people can't. I'm not most people, she said, her tone light but edged with confidence. Jeff felt something warm settle in his chest, a mix of relief and admiration. Noted. For a moment, the tension eased. Baxter yowled from his carrier, demanding attention, and Sonia laughed softly, scooping him up. Jeff watched her, the curve of her smile, the way her eyes softened when she looked at the cat, and thought, not for the first time, that his mother might be onto something. But this had to be on their terms, not Elaine's. As Sonia settled on the sofa, Baxter sprawled across her lap like a furry monarch. Jeff made a silent promise. Whatever happened next, it would be real. No games, no schemes, just two people figuring out if this spark could become something more. And for the first time in years, that thought didn't scare him at all. Chapter 11. Christmas Eve revelations. The city shimmered under a blanket of snow, lights twinkling like scattered jewels against the velvet night. Inside Jeff's apartment, warmth radiated from the fireplace, garlands glowed softly, and the scent of cinnamon cocoa lingered in the air, a quiet sanctuary from the holiday chaos beyond. Jeff stood by the window, watching flakes drift lazily past the glass. His mother had gone out for last-minute errands, which Jeff suspected was code for strategic meddling. He didn't mind the quiet. It gave him space to think, about Sonia, about the way her laughter had filled the room last night, about the honesty in her eyes when she'd said she wasn't here for anyone's plan but her own. He was still turning that over when a knock sounded at the door. Jeff opened it to find Sonia standing there, cheeks flushed from the cold, a slim box in her gloved hands. Baxter peeked out from his carrier with an expression that could only be described as judgmental. Hi, she said, smiling. Merry Christmas Eve. Jeff felt something warm settle in his chest. Merry Christmas Eve. She stepped inside, shedding her coat, and the room seemed to brighten. Not from the lights, but from her presence. Jeff took the box she offered, brows lifting. A gift, he asked. Just something small, she said, her tone casual but her eyes holding a flicker of anticipation. Jeff opened the box carefully and froze. Inside was a sleek leather notebook, embossed with his initials in understated gold. Elegant, thoughtful, perfect. Sonia, he said quietly. This is amazing. She smiled, a hint of color rising in her cheeks. You mentioned once you like writing things down. You thought right, Jeff said, his voice low. Thank you. He set the notebook aside and crossed to the tree, retrieving a small bag tied with a crimson ribbon. Your turn. She opened it slowly, and her laugh was soft, warm. A scarf, she said, lifting the cashmere wrap in a shade of deep forest green. Beautiful. Matches your eyes, Jeff said before he could stop himself. Her gaze flicked up, meeting his, and for a moment the world narrowed to that look. Steady, unspoken, charged. Jeff, she began, then hesitated, fingers smoothing the scarf. About your mom, he exhaled, moving closer. I know. She means well, Sonia said softly. But I need you to know. I'm here because I want to be. Not because she wants me here. Jeff's chest tightened. Not with worry, but with something deeper. Relief, gratitude, hope. I know, he said quietly. And for the record, I want you here. For me. Silence stretched. A heartbeat, too, before Sonia smiled, slow and genuine. Good, she said. Because I want that too. Jeff felt something shift inside him, like a lock turning, a door opening. He didn't move closer. Not yet. But the air between them hummed with possibility, warm and bright as the lights on the tree. Behind them, Baxter yawned loudly, as if to say finally, and curled up on the rug with imperial indifference. As the fire crackled and snow fell beyond the glass, Jeff realized something simple and undeniable. This wasn't about his mother's schemes or holiday magic. It was about two people finding something real, Unexpected, unplanned, but exactly what they needed. And tomorrow, Christmas morning, he intended to tell her that. Chapter 12. Christmas morning and a kiss. The city was hushed under a blanket of snow, rooftops glistening like sugared cookies in the pale winter light. Inside Jeff's apartment, warmth radiated from the fireplace, garlands shimmered softly, and the tree stood proud in the corner, its ornaments catching the glow like tiny stars. Jeff moved quietly through the living room, setting 2 mugs of cocoa on the coffee table. His mother had left early for a holiday brunch with friends, which Jeff suspected was her way of giving him space, though not without a knowing smile and a wink that said mission accomplished. Baxter lounged on the armchair like a furry sentinel, tail flicking lazily. The knock came just as Jeff adjusted the ribbon on the last gift under the tree. He opened the door to find Sonia standing there, cheeks pink from the cold, a slim box in her hands. Her smile was warm, her eyes bright, and Jeff felt something in his chest settle, like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. "Merry Christmas," she said softly. "Merry Christmas," Jeff replied, stepping aside to let her in. She slipped off her coat, revealing a deep emerald sweater that matched the scarf he'd given her. Baxter trotted over, meowing like a tiny herald, and Sonia laughed, scooping him up before settling on the sofa. Jeff joined her, handing over a mug of cocoa. Their fingers brushed. Again that spark, quick and electric, and Sonia smiled, curling her hands around the warm ceramic. "Thank you," she said. "You make the best cocoa." "High standards," Jeff said lightly. "Can't disappoint." She laughed softly, and for a moment the world narrowed to that sound, the warmth of it, the ease. Jeff reached for the box she'd brought, brows lifting. "Another gift? Just something small," she said, her tone casual but her eyes holding a flicker of anticipation. Inside was a silver pen, sleek and elegant, engraved with his initials. Jeff stared at it for a beat, then looked up, something unspoken rising in his chest. "Sonia, this is perfect. You mentioned you like writing," she said, her voice quiet. "Thought you'd need the right pen." Jeff smiled, slow and genuine. "You think of everything." "Not everything," she said, her lips curving. "Just the important things." Silence stretched, a heartbeat, too, before Jeff spoke, his voice low, steady. "Last night what you said, about being here because you want to be." Her gaze met his, warm and unwavering. "Still true." Jeff exhaled, something loosening inside him. "Good," he said softly, "because I want you here. For me, not for my mom, not for Christmas, just for us." Sonia's smile deepened, her eyes bright. "Then we're on the same page." Jeff felt the air shift, charged, intimate, inevitable. He moved closer, slow enough to give her space, and when she didn't pull back, he reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. Her breath caught and then, finally, he kissed her. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't tentative. It was warm and certain, like everything that had been building between them had found its moment. Sonia's hand curled against his chest, his arms slid around her waist, and for a long, quiet beat, the world outside ceased to exist. When they broke apart, Sonia laughed softly, her forehead resting against his. "Your mom's going to take credit for this." Jeff chuckled, his voice low. "Let her. She earned it." Baxter yawned loudly from the armchair, as if to say about time, and curled up with imperial indifference. Jeff smiled, pulling Sonia closer as the fire crackled and snow fell beyond the glass. Christmas morning had brought gifts, cocoa, and laughter. But more than that, it had brought something real, something unexpected, something worth keeping. And for the first time in years, Loren wasn't just okay with that. He was ready for it.